Have you ever actually stopped to wonder what truly holds a massive, incredibly diverse nation together? We often just think of borders, right? Or shared languages, or maybe even just the lines drawn on a map. But consider a country like Indonesia for a second. We're talking about a place with over 17,000 islands and literally hundreds of distinct languages. What keeps a structure that vastly complex from just collapsing? Well, if you look underneath the surface of any enduring society, you don't just find geography. You find a shared philosophical blueprint. So today, in this explainer, we are exploring the master blueprint of Indonesia. We're looking at Pancasila. And we aren't just looking at it as some dusty historical document, but as an intricately engineered system of thought. Okay, let's dive into this roadmap for today. We'll start with what Pancasila philosophy actually is. Then we'll explore the founder's vision, look at the hierarchical pyramidal structure, understand mutually fulfilling unity, and finally wrap up with how it acts as the source of norms and law. Section 1. What is Pancasila philosophy? Defining the core concept. Before we can really appreciate the building, we need to understand the sheer intellectual depth required to pour the foundation. A lot of times, national philosophies are treated like a simple checklist, something you memorize in grade school and then pretty much forget about. The Pancasila is defined as a critical and rational reflection on nation building. 3 words here are absolutely crucial: deep, radical, and systematic. To really grasp this blueprint, we have to think radically, which, if we look at the root of the word, literally means going to the root of things. We have to think systematically, understanding exactly how every single piece interacts. This entirely elevates Pancasila from a mere list of nice-sounding ideals into a serious, rigorous intellectual framework. Section 2. The founder's vision, the original architects. To really get a grip on this framework, we need to meet the original architects. Because these weren't just politicians. They were brilliant intellectual heavyweights who meticulously designed this system completely from the ground up. Now, what's really interesting about this is that on June 1, 1945, founding father Sukarno explicitly used architectural metaphors. He introduced the Dutch term filosofische grondslag, the philosophical foundation. He wasn't just talking about making some rules. He was talking about laying the deepest soul and desire right into the earth so that an eternal and everlasting building of an independent Indonesia could be constructed right on top of it. He viewed himself and his peers as the very engineers of a society. And that grand vision? Well, it was further refined by another brilliant mind, Muhammad Hatta. If we juxtapose Sukarno's 1945 foundational vision with Hatta's writings in his 1966 book, Our Democracy, we see this fascinating alignment. Hatta practically split this blueprint into 2 core fundamentals. First, you have a moral foundation, which is the belief in the divine. Second, you have a political foundation, encompassing humanity, unity, democracy, and social justice. Hatta argued that by intentionally placing the divine as the moral bedrock, the resulting political structure would be fundamentally rooted in truth, justice, and honesty. It's 2 visionary minds working in perfect architectural tandem. Section 3. Hierarchical pyramidal structure. The engineering core. Now, this is where the philosophy stops being abstract and really starts showing its structural genius. The thinker Noto Nagoro basically mapped out exactly how these 5 principles of Pancasila actually connect. He called it the hierarchical pyramidal structure. This isn't just a random list of 5 disconnected thoughts. Now, this structure means the principles are deeply connected in a highly specific, measurable flow of both quantity and quality. Let's break down exactly what that looks like. Let's walk up the pyramid step by step. Step 1, at the absolute base, is divinity. This is the widest, most foundational layer that breathes life into and physically supports everything above it. Step 2, humanity, is supported by divinity, but in turn, it supports step 3, unity. Unity supports step 4, democracy. And finally, sitting at the very apex of this pyramid is step 5, social justice. This is the ultimate goal. Notice how the 5th principle doesn't support anything above it? Because it's the roof. It is the final achievement that the entire structure beneath was purposefully designed to hold up. If you yank out the base, the entire goal of social justice just crashes to the ground. Section 4. Mutually fulfilling unity, the interlocking materials. So a pyramid is great and all, but how do these 5 distinct steps actually hold together? I mean, they don't just stack passively on top of one another, they actively interlock. This is Majemuk Tunggal, or compound unity. It's the concept that absolutely no single principle can stand alone. Each principle qualifies, contains, and implies all the others. So the crucial point is, you cannot separate these ideas without collapsing the entire structure. If you try to practice just one principle while totally ignoring the rest, you aren't actually practicing Pancasila at all. Following the rhythm of this logic, the first principle, divinity, isn't just some abstract concept of God. Because of compound unity, it is a divinity characterized by humanity, a divinity that actively fosters unity, a divinity that encourages democratic deliberation, and a divinity that explicitly demands social justice. And guess what? It works in reverse too. The democracy practiced in step 4 must be a democracy that is humane, unified, just, and morally grounded in the divine. It's like a perfectly interlocking matrix of philosophical DNA, where every single principle is intrinsically woven into the fabric of the other 4.
Section 5, Source of Norms and Law, the building we live in today.
Okay, so we've talked about the abstract philosophy and the structural engineering. Now, let's bring this blueprint all the way back down to Earth and see the actual building we live in today. This philosophical blueprint directly dictates the actual rules of daily life. For instance, there's a 2001 decree regarding national ethics that outlines ethics for social and cultural life, for government and politics, for economy and business, law enforcement, science, and even the environment. Every single one of these ethical guidelines didn't just pop out of thin air. They were directly birthed from that 5-step pyramid we were just looking at. The abstract philosophy translates into the highly concrete ways businesses operate and the justice system functions.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how deep this goes into the legal system. According to the hierarchy of laws, starting from the 1945 Constitution at the very top, flowing down through government laws, presidential regulations, all the way down to step 6, local, city, and regency regulations. The DNA of Pancasila literally cascades down this entire waterfall. It means a local regulation about, say, where you can park your car or build a public park must, legally and philosophically, trace its lineage straight back up to that original blueprint of humanity, unity, democracy, and justice. It is bureaucracy meeting high philosophy.
Which really leaves us with this final thought. As you've seen throughout this explainer, the founders drafted a meticulously engineered, deeply radical, and profoundly interconnected system. The philosophical structure is totally sound. The interlocking logic is flawless. We have the perfect blueprint. But the real question you have to ask yourself, as a citizen looking at the society around you today, is this. We have the perfect blueprint, but are we building it right? Are our daily actions, our local laws, and our national decisions genuinely staying true to the genius of those original architects? That's something for all of us to seriously reflect on. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.